Okay, and now if you look at this, after giving this ID, first name, last name, age, you just need to right click here in Eclipse especially, and then there is a source, generate setters and getters.
Yeah.
So Eclipse will do the all boilerplate code kinds of
Right.
things. So I'm going to just select all, generate. So we got all setters and getters.
Yeah.
Okay. Setters
Yeah.
method is to initialize the ID value, and getters method is to get the value. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
So now come to the configuration.xml. If you are playing around with the XML, then what you need to do is you have to define a bean something like this. First and most important things, you have to write one XML file under the resources folder. Yesterday,
Okay.
whatever morning batch we have created, this is also a Maven project, but under the main, you have to right click and then go to folder and create one folder called resources folder. Expectation is Maven should create a resources folder, but from a long time, I can see that there is a bug inside this Maven project creation while Eclipse. It is not creating the resources folder. So
Okay.
you have to manually create the resources folder if you have something like XML file to work. So click on finish. I got a resources folder. Okay.
Okay.
So if you
Yeah.
look at my hello world example here, hello ioc Maven, I created a resources folder. Then I right click on this new file and I have given config.xml. So that is the reason you are able to see this config.xml here.
Right.
Now, line number 1 to 9, this is known as schema. It is known as schema. So schema is basically telling to the reader of this XML file how to read this particular XML file. So if you look at how to get this schema, there's a many tutorials available. This guy is having something like this. You can look at this, but this is
Okay.
the Spring 3 version wala schema. So I will recommend you, you go to the Spring documentation, Spring doc for IOC. So code technology Spring, inversion of control. Let's open this, or let's open this, the IOC container. And if you go down, you can look at this. Here is a schema. You just copy from here and paste it into your XML file. That's what even I did.
Okay.
Now, I need to define a bean. You remember last class I told you bean is nothing but the object. And what Spring is telling you, do not create your object by yourself. You need to create the object with the help of Spring IOC. And how to ask Spring to create an object of my particular class? This is the way. This is the way you can ask. Define a tag called bean, then give the name, ID, whatever name you want, you can give, and which class
Okay.
object you want to create. com.nick.person. Now,
Okay.
under this person class, I have almost 4 property, right?
Yeah.
ID, first name, last name, and age. And
Okay.
what I want to initialize this property while creating an object itself. That is the reason we have to mention here property, name, and their value. Name, value, name, value. Make sure these names are same name, whatever is defined under the person class.
Okay.
So now this configuration class is exactly doing the same work what we did under the config.java. This way, we were creating in the old age. In Spring 3 or 4, we were using the XML. But now
Right.
this day, any new project is not having XML because the idea is do not maintain XML, come out from the XML side. So every modern
Okay.
application is having the config.java rather than config.xml. But you want to
Okay.
know this, it's important to know also because sometimes you will be going to the company, they are using the older version of a Spring, and that's where you might understand what is this config.xml. Well, so we replace the greeting class with person class. config.java with config.xml, and app.java with manager class. Now here we go. If you are using annotation, then you have to create a class called annotation config application context and pass the annotation configuration wala class. But if you are using XML, then you have to replace the annotation wala class with class path XML application context and pass the XML file which is holding the all beans which you have defined. Now, since we have a context, I will ask this guy, hey, give me the person class object. So person p1 equal to context dot get bean, and bean name we have defined under XML is p1, and here we gonna say I have person dot class. You got a person dot class, and now what you need to do is syso p1 dot get id, and like this way you can call p1 dot get first name, p1 dot get last name, and p1 dot get age. That's all. So if I run this application manager class, I'm expecting I should get the value 1, 2, 3, ABC, XYZ, which is initialized during the object creation.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Okay.
whatever example you guys might have seen over the internet, in fact, whatever example I was referring to you, now you will be 100% able to compare our example with this example. Now, let's get a start from the beginning.
Yeah.
Hello world, person class. Main app, similarly class path XML giving the beans.xml. In our case, it's a config.xml. And then after, we also have config.xml. This guy has defined the bean. How he has defined bean? Go down, bean ID, whatever ID, class for which you are defining, property, message, value. In his case, there is only one property. In our case, we have a 4 property, so we have given the all property.
Okay.
And the example which you might refer over the internet, it's not the best example. Look at this example. What this guy is doing. If I try doing that, then it will be something like this. See here. What he's doing, he's downcasting. The return type of this getBean method is a object class. An object class is a supermost class for every class in Java. So when you are asking the object class to into any child class, you have to downcast this. If you not do, you will get a compile time error. Eclipse will tell you that cannot convert from object to person. So if you ask Eclipse, what is the solution? It will ask you, please downcast it. Something like this. So whatever example you are referring or we are referring right now, this guy is doing downcasting. But trust me, downcasting is not a good practice. It is a boilerplate code, and also the performance is not good. So the person who knows Spring well, they will never do this person casting. Rather than there is an option to pass the class name directly here. So I have been working in Spring from more than 8-9 years. So I know
Yeah.
all in and out. So I never write the code which is not actually the best code. Are you getting my point?
Yeah.
So here I am not going to downcast anything. I'll just pass the person class and I will ask the container, hey container, you might be holding the person class object. So please cast there internally and then return me the person class direct object.
Right.
Okay.
Now, so with this example, whichever you see, it's having the XML based. But if you type something like this, a Spring IOC Hello World example with annotation. And now open whatever example you are able to see. It will be completely matching with the example which we have seen. So let's go down. This guy is again having the hello world, just printing hello world. And after that, he's creating the configuration class. Can you look at this? At the rate of
Yeah.
configuration, at the rate of bean, returning the hello world object. And again, see, it is saying an equivalent XML based configuration, but he's not entertaining that. And finally, he's having the class using the annotation config.class and calling the method. No?
Right.
Yeah.
Simple. Still confusion?
No.
No.
It's clear?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good. But let's do some sort of operation in this example. What is the
Okay.
operation? Now, under the config.xml, we have created a person class object, and along with the object creation, we have also set the value called 1, 2, 3, ABC, XYZ, and 24. Imagine the person class object is a part of your banking system. So consider this person is nothing but it is an account holder in a particular bank. So in that bank, if you are going to set ID, first name, last name as a fix, 1, 2, 3, ABC, XYZ, do you think every customer is having the ID as 1, 2, 3? Every customer is having the first name as a ABC? No, right? This is invalid. You should not allow to set the properties like this in the XML. If you do so, then the all person object which you will create, it is going to have the same value. But in the real time, if you are creating a person class object, what is the meaning of that? One person has opened an account, and a person has opened an account, it means you have created the person class object, and that particular person is having their own details. They might be having their own ID, first name, last name, age. So typically, you should not allow to give value like this in a bean object creation itself. The reason is whatever value we are setting here, it becomes fixed with all objects. Whoever will create a person class object, every person class is having the same property, ID, first name, last name, age. So person came with name, something called Mohan, and his name is going to store in the database as a ABC. So we will be confused later. Oh my God, how my name has changed? Getting the problem? So
Yeah.
what is the best practice? The best practice is we will not specify the property here. We will be going to the manager class. The moment I got a person class object, which is a brand new person object, if you see in the UI, from UI we are gonna capture the first name, last name, all these things, and then we will see p1 dot set first name, whatever value user has given in the HTML, same value we will be putting over here. Getting the point or not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our target is to just get an empty object, not a fully qualified object. Once you got an empty object, you are responsible to set the value what user has given to you. It should be dynamic, not the static.
Okay.
Okay.
You understood the meaning of a static and dynamic? This guy is static value. This whatever value right now you have noticed here, it is a static.
ABC.
So static means you have fixed that. But whatever value now we're going to set in the manager class, it might be that something like this. Let me tell you. So quickly, I will go here. After getting the person class object, I will create a scanner class object. We don't have a right now HTML part. We don't have Tomcat server. So what I will do, I will quickly use the scanner class system.in. You might be knowing the scanner class. This is
Yeah.
used for taking the user input. Enter the ID. And what I will do, p1 dot set ID, and we will say sc dot next int, right? Similarly,
Right.
what we will ask, enter the first name, and we will say p1 dot set first name sc dot next.
Mm-hmm.
And again, enter the last name. And p1 dot set last name, which is going to be sc dot again next, because it is also a string. And finally, we're gonna ask enter the age, and you got it. p1 dot set age sc
Next int.
dot next int. This becomes fully dynamic, right? This is how the real-time world is. Now let's run
Correct.
this program and see what's happening. We are going to ask id 123, first name, last name, 45, and whatever value we have said, that's the same value you are getting also. It means after getting this whole data, we are going to store this person object into the database. So next time, whoever is referring this person class object, he will be getting that value which he has stored or which he has given during registration. Making sense or not?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So now you guys, whatever example you have referred, see, there's lots of skill read while you are searching over the internet. If you just search like a spring example, some people search like this, right?
Right.
Example, you will see, you will get lots of example which might be having the MVC also included. So last class while learning, if you remember, we have clearly discussed on this part. So I told you Spring is having a lots of module, and
Yeah.
one of
Yes.
the
Yes.
module is
Yeah.
core module. So
Core
iOS
one.
is the one
I
which we
was.
have
Yeah.
started yesterday. We have AOP, we have a DAO, we have a ORM, we have a web MVC, all these things. That we will be slowly we are learning. But right
Right.
now we are just in core concept, which is Spring IOC, and this is the example which I delivered to you. It is exactly same if you refer the core example of any website.
Yeah.
Okay. Now,
Okay.
Okay.
one more very important point. When to pass the property here? Let's say you are defining a certain, I will have one class here, something called bank class. So I'm defining a one class here called bank. Okay. And this
Mm.
bank class is having one property, private string name. Okay.
Okay.
One is name, other one is the other name is is international. Okay. Now you have one bank class which is having the name and the is international, which could be a boolean. Let's give a boolean value. Is international is a question mark. So either true or false. Now I have a setters and getters method for this class.
Mm-hmm.
Shows, generate, getters and setters. Now somebody is asking you to define a bean for this. You can have multiple bean in a single XML class, guys. So nothing like that. So I created a B1 and class name is now bank. And here I'm going to pass some property. Name is name itself and value is SVI. Similarly, go to bank class, copy is international, come to configuration, this one, and true.
Mm.
Now think about this class, whether this property makes sense here or not. I think yes, because bank name is not going to be changed, right? It is
Yeah.
Right.
always fixed. Each international tag is also not going to change frequently. It is also kinds of fixed. So whenever you are creating a bean of a particular class and you found the property of this class is not going to be changed at any cost,
Okay.
there is no chance people can set the bank name to a HDFC and object is of SBI. No one can do that, right?
Right. Yeah.
So this is the right place where you can specify the property also.
Okay.
But of course, in the person class, all the properties are varying by person to person. That is the reason in person class, it's not advisable to put a property and all. Let's take a brand new object, empty bean. But in the bank class, it makes sense because bank name is not going to change frequently. Each international tag is not going to change frequently. So whoever will get a bank object, he will get a fully qualified bank object and he can simply reuse that. He just need to call getters method. In fact, I will suggest you do not put a setters method. No, my bad. Setters method is required. Now look at this one more term.
Okay.
In config.xml file, under the bank, I have setters and getters both, right?
Mm-hmm.
When your manager class will run, first and most important part is happening, your configuration file is going to be loaded. And the
Hmm.
moment your configuration file is loaded, that time itself, all the bean defined under this configuration.xml is going to be created. So right now we have a two bean, person class, bank class. So doesn't matter, we are not using the bank class object, but manager class, the moment it will load the XML file, a Spring will create the all object while loading itself. So under the bank class, we have a setters and getters method. There will be no problem at all. If you want to test it out, then go to bank class and put one empty constructor, default constructor.
Yeah.
So if you put a constructor and if you are getting the output, it means object is created. Bank object created. Okay. Let's run the manager class and see whether bank object is creating or not. Oh, what's happened? B1. Any property is missing? Let me check that. Bank name is international. What is the error? Never ever feared with the error. Let's fight with the error. It is saying to me,
Yeah.
error creating bean with the name of B1. Look at this.
Mm-hmm.
Defined in your configuration.xml file. Okay. Error setting properties values. It is saying error setting properties value. So while setting some property, it found some error. It is saying no writable properties. Invalid property is international for bean class. It means there was must have some typo. That's what my guess is. So I just copied from their manager and then I again, let's try running this. It is still saying there is a problem. Is this because of Boolean? I don't know, but let me check that. Set international, we are passing Boolean, and for Boolean event, we need to pass as a double quotes. Property name is okay. Let me just give a fail and trial way. I'm going to change this to a string, and then I will see that whether Boolean is a problem because I
Okay.
never tried for a Boolean. So set international and get international. Let me run the manager class now. And I think yes,
Okay.
Boolean is
Mm-hmm.
the problem. So if we have a Boolean types of property in our bean class, how to define a value, that is quite interesting. Are we going to pass this something like this? Not sure. No, this is saying it's a invalid because error is coming. But this is interesting. We should know that. But yes, let's figure it out later. But what I'm
Okay.
trying to tell you right now is While running the manager class, configuration.xml file is loaded, and look at this, bank object is also created. Now, somebody is defining the property here, name and is international, but that person is missing to define the setters and getters. Let's not have a setters and getters, especially they are not having the setters method. Okay, and now try
Okay.
running the manager class again. So the moment you run, you will get an exception, and this exception will give you the very clear understanding. The exception is not writable property exception. Invalid property name of bean class blank. Bean property name is not writable or has a invalid setter method. Can you see that? Does the
Okay.
parameter type of setter match return to the type of getters? So these are the many hints you are getting with a Spring documentation or a Spring library itself. Anybody can understand this. Bank object has not created because it is not having the proper setter method. Not
Correct.
only that, why Spring is popular, if you copy this exception and just search into the Google. Many
Google.
people never ever go and read the complete, but if you copy it, look at this, how simple and easy way you will get an answer. People are talking about it, they are giving all these stuffs, and they are saying in bean.xml you are trying to set field admins of collection properties. However, class does not have the field, it has a email fields. Aha. So you have a plenty of answer available over the internet for Spring related. But my recommendation is just read the exception properly, try understanding what is wrong. If you are
Yeah.
unable to figure it out, then go and Google it.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
So this is how we are dealing with the IOC and the bean creation. You understood when to create, when to specify the property. One thing is very important. If you not specify the property, it will not look for setters method. Now, if I run manager class, in fact, I have put the setters method back. So if my property is not specified, then there is no problem. Look at this. The only problem is that you created a bean and you have specified the property. If you specified the property here, then you must have a setters method inside your bean class.
Okay.
Uh, Understanding or not?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good. Super. Guys, so timer has been started. It might be disconnected. So please log in again.
Okay.
Now, come to the manager class. Under this manager class, I'm just asking this Spring container, give me the person class object. And I don't have any property specified here. Only in the person class, I have one constructor which is going to tell me object person created. In fact, from configuration.xml, I'm also going to comment the bank class. Let's run the manager class. If I run it, I will be simply getting person object is created. And that makes sense also, because inside your configuration.xml, only one bean is defined, that is person class object. And while loading this XML file, Spring has created the person class object. There is some concept called a scope of a bean. What is this scope of a bean? A scope of a bean is saying the object which Spring is creating, the bean which Spring is creating. What is the scope of that? By default, the scope is singleton. What is the meaning of singleton? It means doesn't matter how many times you are calling the getBean method. Currently, I'm asking the container 2 times. One time getBean P1, second time get bin P1, and I'm taking P1 and P2. I just want to validate that whether two object or person is created or only one object has been returned every time. So if you put like P1 equal to P2, if both the object are same, you will get a true. If both the object are different, you will get false. So now try running manager class and look at this, whether a scope is singleton, which is whether you are writing or not, it is always there. So this section always sitting with this bin object. Singleton indicates at any cost, the only one object of that particular class will be created. Doesn't matter how many times you are, guys, are you with me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So doesn't matter how many times people are requesting for this object, I will make sure that only one object is created. This is the one way by which you can validate. Another way is if your person class object, if your person class constructor is executing two times, it means two object has been created. Let's run the manager class and see what's happening. Look at this. Even though you call getWin method two times, object has been created only one time. Constructor executed only one time. And P1 equal to P2 is also telling you I am true. It means there is no difference between P1 and P2. Understanding or
Right.
not?
Yeah.
So singleton, a scope of singleton, which is a by default. A Spring is giving a guarantee that if a scope is singleton, then only one object of your particular class will be created, not more than one object. Now, what are the
Okay.
other scope? There is a other scope called prototype. Prototype. The moment you change the scope to a prototype, it means what? Every time you will request for getWheel, a Spring will create a new object for you. You called 100 times getWin P1, getWin P1, it will 100 times create a new object for you. Let's run this example now and see what's happening. As expected, can you see that two times your constructor
Right.
executed? If two times constructor executed, it means two object has been created, and P1 equal to P2 is now false. What is the meaning of this? The meaning of this is now this is not the same object. It is a brand new object. So this is the very, very important concept, guys, for a scope of a bin. So when you talk about a scope of a bin, you just go hello ioc maven in my git repo, and you will be able to see the note.txt. Under that, we are talking about the scope of a bin. We have basically 5 types of scope. One
Okay.
is singleton. Singleton is clearly indicating the moment your scope is singleton, only one object will be created, and which is by default. You don't need to mention anything. It is by default. Prototype. If the scope is prototype, then every time you will request for a getBin method, Spring will create a new object for you. Request. Request. Every